our endowment came from the sale of the old Group Health Association. GHA was the first HMO in Washington, D.C. On a personal note, my best friend's aunt was a member of GHA. She got all her health care from GHA. She loved GHA. And as Deborah mentioned, it was back in those days, the district was segregated. So it was one of the few healthcare organizations and physician groups that actually was integrated and African Americans could get their care there. In fact, they owned a building at 18th and Massachusetts Avenue, which is now, I think, part of the Brookings Institute. But another aside, when I worked for Planned Parenthood Federation of America, we bought that building from GHA and used it as the DC headquarters for the Federation. Anyway, when the physicians at GHA realized at the time, during those times, that healthcare had changed and that the escalating cost of providing care would no longer enable them to live up to their mission, they decided to disband the practice. And in this disbanding the practice, they established the Consumer Health Foundation. It was something that a lot of larger healthcare organizations eventually did by becoming the foundation. The term used, conversion foundation. So we became, quote, one of the first conversion foundations, and definitely the first here in this region, having our endowment come from the disbanding of the old Group Health Association's practice. I was working, as I said, at the Greater Southeast Healthcare System at the time. And in the early days of the founding of, or the formation of the foundation, the stock market was doing exceedingly well. And everybody was making money, and that was during the 90s. And the foundation was beginning to make its mark in the community. I also knew the first CEO very well, having worked with her when she worked at the Prince Charitable Trust. So the foundation was doing a lot as a new foundation to make its mark in the community and to begin to work very hard to move its mission of providing and working with organizations that provided health care. And then came the recession. And everyone, including CHF, suffered during the recession of 2008, I guess it was, yeah. And our portfolio, as Yannick said, was hit hard by the recession and the serious downturn in the stock market. We were heavily invested in the market. It would have been easy for the board at that point to decide to protect the assets of the foundation and to preserve what remained of the original endowment by cutting back on the number and amount of grants to the community. I mean, we were a small foundation given the size of our endowment at the time. And as all foundation boards probably think and thought, we wanted to be around forever, in perpetuity. The board at the time decided, given the impact of the recession on everyone in our community, it wasn't the right time to pull back. It wasn't the time to be cautious. It was the time to support the needs of our community. And by continuing that support, not only of existing grantees, but to continue supporting grant making at pre-recession levels. I agreed with the decision at the time, and I continue to agree with the decision the board made at that time. I mean, if you think about it, why GHA formed the foundation. Forget that they had to sell, okay? Forget that the cost of healthcare and their model of providing services was no longer working. Remember that when they did decide to disband the group, they formed the foundation. GHA formed the foundation to improve access to healthcare and the economic stability of our community. So CHF, in my mind, and in the mind of the board at the time, had no other choice but to stay the course in terms of funding to ensure our efforts would assist in keeping many of our partners afloat during that time, and thus keeping individuals and organizations afloat also. CHF is a living, breathing entity. We are small, but a mighty entity. Our lives, our community's lives, thrive by the decisions we make. But those decisions are not for us personally. They're for the individuals, families, and communities we serve. And as such, being frugal during a time of great need would not have lived up to the values we cherish as an organization, nor to the reason we were formed in the first place.